It is 5:02 p.m. on Monday, February 26, 2024. This is a regular board meeting for the Monroe School District. Present are myself, President Bumpus, Director Barnes, we have Director Campbell, Director Edscorn, Director Whitfield, student representatives Laura Wittenberg and Sophia Willett, Superintendent Sean Woodward, district leadership team, school district staff, as well as members of the community. Members of the public can log into the regular board meeting using the Zoom link attached to tonight's agenda. This is found on the Board Docs website. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to tonight's meeting. We are happy to have you join us. All comments during tonight's meeting are audio recorded and will be available online on our website. This is in addition to the written minutes. Please understand that while it may appear the board is moving quickly on important matters, there have been previous discussions on these issues, either in earlier meetings or in board workshops, which are also open public meetings. Each director has had ample time to study the issues, ask appropriate questions, and obtain satisfactory answers from the superintendent, his staff, or through outside research. Those wishing to address the board during public comments must turn in a public comment form prior to the start of the meeting at 5 p.m. Any form submitted after the meeting has started will be held for the next meeting to address the board at that time. Okay, moving on to agenda item 2.05, approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda dated February 26, 2024?
I move that the Monroe School District Board of Directors approves the agenda dated February 26, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second that the Monroe School District Board of Directors approves the agenda dated February 26, 2024. All in favor, raise your hand. The agenda item has passed 5-0. Moving on to agenda item 3.01, iReady assessment results. I would like to invite the Chief Academic Officer, Kim Whitworth, and the Director of Curriculum and Assessment, Jennifer Murphy.
We're back. It's good to see you all again. Today, we want to dive into assessments. We've talked a little bit about the curriculum that we're using. We've talked about our assessments. We talked about professional development. And so we want to take this opportunity to share a little bit more about iReady, which is an assessment that we use. In the past, I've talked with you about the different kinds of assessments that we use in education. So we have formative assessments that teachers use every day, and we call it checking for understanding. It could be walking around to see what kids have, what they know and what they don't know. It could be an exit ticket. The second level of assessments that we talk about are common formative assessments. And those are assessments that our collaborative teams use that are built to assess the learning our students have on essential standards. Then we have interim benchmarks, which is our iReady assessment that we use. And then we have the state assessment, which is our SBA assessment. So when we're talking about iReady, this is an assessment that we've been using in the district since about 1819. I believe they started looking at it and bought it and purchased it and provided for the training in 2016-17. So there are two pieces to this assessment that we use. The first is a diagnostic at the beginning of the year. And this is an opportunity to find out where our students are in terms of their learning and to identify gaps that they might have. We also use it as an interim assessment throughout the year. So in addition to in the beginning of the year in the fall, we also look at it again in the winter to say, okay, so all of the things that we put in place, all of our goals that we have, the interventions that we have, how are our kids doing? It's an opportunity for mid-year to just pause, see what's going on, and make adjustments when necessary. We also have it at the end of the year, and it supports the goal setting that our school leaders do and our collaborative teams do. Our iReady assessment is used in addition to monitoring growth and identifying areas of need. It's used to identify students who are struggling in reading, and we use it as our state assessment for LAP. And Chris can probably talk a little bit more about that when he does his LAP and Title I presentation. So there are a lot of things that iReady does, and we're still learning about how we can use it to effectively identify what students know and are able to do, but also what it is that we need to know and be able to do to meet their needs. So I'm going to turn this over to Jennifer so that she can dive into a little bit more about what we're learning about iReady, what it's showing mid-year about our growth, because we just finished that assessment, and then kind of what we're doing next after that.
All right, so we're going to get started with our Monroe commitment, and iReady actually really does help us in the 3 different areas because it helps teachers to determine whether the instruction that they're providing is powerful, if it's aligned to the standards, if it's rigorous. It provides equitable access and that it is a gap filler. There's no one way to differentiate for all students, but it is a tool that we use to help scaffold and differentiate instruction and fill gaps for students. And then high expectations, it helps all of our students achieve different goals based on how they come in and where they need to grow. So Kim shared a little bit about iReady, but just as a reminder, it's an online K-8 reading and math program that's grounded in research. It has an adaptive assessment of math and reading. It provides a personalized learning pathway that aligns to each student's specific skill level and their needs. It provides progress monitoring options and data for teachers, and it supports goal setting and self-assessment. The priorities for this school year with iReady was that we were going to use it to support the data cycle of our collaborative teams and practice and rehearse the work of becoming a district-wide PLC. So our teachers are learning how to use data, that all of the different types that Kim talked about, different kinds of assessment. And this is one tool that they can look to when they're in their collaborative team meetings to look at how students are doing. We also were utilizing personalized instruction to close those learning gaps for students in math and reading. And our goal for this year was that students would complete and pass 2 lessons each week in math and reading. And Sandra and I will be working with Sean and our district and school leaders tomorrow to engage in more kind of a data cycle around that specific goal and how we're doing on that. And then we were aiming for a 95% completion rate on the diagnostic in fall, winter, and spring to make sure that we were getting accurate results for our students. So this next slide is really when we're talking about iReady is what are you looking at when you're looking at the achievement data? So we use when you see the dark green, we're talking about students are mid grade level or above grade level. So that means they're either like if they're a 3rd grader, they're midway through the year in their understanding of the essential standards for 3rd grade, or they're above that. If they're light green, that means they're early on grade level. So they might have skills that are associated with the beginning part of a school year. If they're 1 grade level below, that means if you're looking at a 3rd grader, they're performing generally in the 2nd grade level. 2 grade levels below would be 1st grade, and 3+ would be K or below. So you're going to see that on the next couple slides, this kind of outline of how students are doing. So this slide is comparing data from 21, 22, 22, 23, and 23, 24 in each grade levels at the winter diagnostic. So at this time of year, we should have half of our students or more in that dark green area to light green area. What we don't want to see is a lot of light green, yellow, or red, because we would want all of our students to be at grade level mid-year range at this time of year. I think there's some successes to highlight. If you look at 3rd grade, you can see that they really are working hard year after year after year to increase the number of students that are on grade level or early on grade level. That said, we have some challenges that we need to address in reading, and part of our focus next year will be on our reading work, and it's going to make sense in a little bit when you see the math with our focus on math this year and how that's impacting our data.
And I want to add just one more quick thing about why it's nice to have it broken down like this as opposed to meeting standard and not meeting standard. When we're setting goals, one strategy is to look at kids that sometimes we call them, those are the kids that are in the bubble. And those are the kids that are just not quite at grade level. And often by just putting the spotlight and focusing on those students, we can move a group of kids pretty easily. We also know that kids that are in the light green, like Jen said, they're just starting to get to where they need to be. We need to keep an eye on them because they have a tendency, if we're not careful, to fall backwards a little bit. So this just gives us a little bit more data to finesse the moves that we make to meet the needs of kids.
I do want to add as we go to the next slide that you'll see, like on the elementary slides, there's no red in kindergarten and there's very little in first grade. You can't assess them 2 grade levels below in kindergarten and first grade. So that's why you see kind of a significant jump in second grade. It's likely that some of those students from second grade who are in the red probably were also struggling in K and 1. The tool just doesn't go far enough below what's expected at kindergarten, if that makes sense. So then this is our reading data for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade for the mid-year diagnostic. And you can see again the 3 years compared. We have some challenges to address. We know that. And I think we make some really good strides. 6th grade, they come in, the kids that were readers in 5th grade are still making progress. In 7th grade, they're still making progress. But unfortunately, what's growing is our students who are falling farther and farther behind. In math, you'll see that we have a lot more kids, like, as Kim said, on the bubble in the yellow ranges. That said, our focus on math this year, I think, is really helping to support some growth data that we're going to look at in a minute. When we compare our growth in math last year to our growth in math this year, which is on the last kind of 2 slides that we're going to look at tonight, you're going to see that there's a lot more growth in math. And I think that's part and parcel to our focus on using our instructional resources at the core level as they're intended, and then also that commitment to the 2 lessons per week. We're seeing more students completing those lessons in mathematics on iReady than in reading right now, and that we're going to be sharing that data with our school leaders and our teacher leaders tomorrow. So I think that's going to really help set the impetus for why we need to get that up in reading. And then this is the 6th, 7th, 8th grade math data. And it mirrors similarly what we saw in elementary.
Hey, Jennifer, I've got a quick question for you.
Absolutely.
So we see the years kind of, grouped together for each grade level, but is there a way to take it in chunks and follow a group of kids from kindergarten, first grade, second grade to see how this particular group of students is doing over time, rather than I'm sitting here going, okay, if they were in 6th for 21-22, this is how they're doing in 22-23, and here's where they are in 23-24. Is there a way to make that?
Yes, we can follow specific students. For example, Kayla and I have a spreadsheet where we're looking at our students who were enrolled in 3rd grade summer reading program, and we're looking at their data compared year after year on the diagnostic. It's a little hard at this level to see that. You can kind of say, well, how the 6th grader performed in 21-22, that then you can look at 7th grade and 22-23, but not all of those students are the same. It's not the exact same cohort. It is a little trickier when you have to start pulling that out, but we can do it.
I had a question. So I have a couple kids in the district, and my daughter lives to please her teacher. She loves her teacher. And so we got her iReady data back a few weeks ago, and she had regressed and she about melted. And I asked her and I said, well, tell me about the iReady test. And she's like, Dad, it just takes forever. And I said, can I ask you a question after a while? Do you just click to get through a question? She goes, yes. And I just start clicking and clicking and clicking. I'm not projecting my daughter's experience on everybody, but I'm wondering about, we look at a lot of the data that we have, whether it's this, whether it's SBAC, and then we look at our graduation rates, and they're disproportionate. There's a lot of people who love to criticize our district and say, we're failing our kids in math, our scores are in the toilet, and we're not going to do anything, and the world is coming to an end. And it's catastrophizing to a degree, and yet we have over 90% graduation rate. And so if we are failing our kids so bad, and it doesn't mean that we're just passing kids through either, it is rigorous in our school system. And so I'm wondering how many kids are disengaged when it comes to assessments that have, there's no, I'm trying to find the right word, there's no accountability or recourse of like, well, if I fail it, who cares? It doesn't even go on my grade anyway. Like, this doesn't go on my report card. And so then the same conversation happened with my son, who in 4th grade had a 10th grade reading level. And then in 10th grade in 9th grade has been rated at a 4th grade reading level because he didn't care. He didn't get dumber. He did go through puberty, but his reading level is still very high, but he's disengaged. And so how do we, I guess my question is, how do we look at some of these ratings on here where kids are in the yellow or even in the red, and it's not necessarily a assessment of their ability levels, but it's an assessment of their engagement, of saying, I don't care about this. There's no recourse of whether I do good or bad. I just want to get done with this stupid thing. And so, and I'm not saying that it's stupid, but just the attitude of the kids sometimes when they get through it and they're tested with a lot of that. My question that I wrote down was, how do we re-engage kids? What strategies do we have in order to do that? So they say, hey, this is worth actually trying. How are we doing that?
So something that Jen and I have been talking a lot about, and we're working with our iReady partners to work with our school leaders and teachers, is something around data chats.
Mhm.
Because if we can sit down with a student and say, if you look at all of the data, if you look at your SBA, if you look at your iReady data, and you look at some of the end of unit exams, and this is what it says about you as a reader, or this is what it says about you as a mathematician, is that accurate? No? Okay. Then let's look at specifically where you might have not done as well as you, or as I know you can do. So having those conversations with students and then goal setting with students around that, as well as some of the fun stuff that you do with, competitions and prizes and all of that. But what we believe is that having these data chats with students is going to help them be more engaged and involved in their learning in all aspects of it, as well as the being responsible for your learning and understanding what you're doing and the self-assessment, but also understanding what these other assessments say about you as a learner. And if it's accurate, then we can still set goals around what is it that you need to do to learn so that you are making the gains that you need to make. And if it was that you just blew it off, let's talk about that a little bit more. So that is definitely an area of growth. Anything else?
Yeah, no, I think we're talking to our teacher leaders tomorrow about data chats, and sort of some of our teachers have been engaging in that. And we want to kind of drill in a little bit more about how to use those more successfully with more students. I think that's part of it. I think the other piece that we've talked with our principals about and our teacher leads about is what teachers believe about that data really impacts what students feel about it and how they engage with it. If the teacher says, oh, we have to do this stupid iReady test, it's a lot less buy-in than in a classroom and the teacher's like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see how you've grown this year on iReady. And so that's part of what we have to calibrate on too, is how our teachers use the data impacts how students feel about the effort they put into it. And, to your point, it is in 4th or 5th grade, it starts to really ramp up to about 45 minutes to complete the assessment. And that's a long time. So we have to backfill that and support our students with learning how to do it and helping our teachers find creative ways to chunk it for students. So they're not just having to sit for 45 minutes and do a whole assessment. So those are things we're talking about, we're aware of. I don't know, to your question, how much of the percentages that is in our
Additional
kids,
data.
and our teachers know more when they see their classes and they know exactly how kids do. And that is something that we have to look at it through that lens.
And I'm going to just do a very brief soapbox. I promise it won't be too painful for people. I don't believe that we've used data well in our educational system. We use it to punish kids. We use it to punish teachers. We've used the data test scores to punish districts and schools. And that's not what it should be for. We should be using assessment data to really help us understand what kids know and are able to do, and to learn what it is that we need to know and be able to do differently to meet the needs of kids. So this is a culture shift that I think you're going to see in a lot of districts across this country. And it's something that we are very cognizant of and are working on, is how do we change the culture around data? And it's not something to beat people up with. It's a tool to help us get better at what we're doing. Soapbox done.
So I have a quick question. So have you, or I should say, how does the grades of the students that are like 3+ grade levels behind correlate to this data?
You know, that's something we have to calibrate. I'm not gonna say that we have that all figured out. What I would say is it depends on the teacher. It should be impacting their grades. A student who's 3 or more grade levels below on an iReady assessment, if that's corroborated with other assessment data that the teacher has, then that student should be getting a 1 on the report card. Whether or not that's happening, I can't speak for every teacher, but I would say that would be an expectation, and you're having a conversation with the family about that. In terms of like middle school grades, A, B, C, D, again, we're in the process of calibrating. I think some teachers have some participation points tied to iReady. I don't know that I would say that I agree with that. That's something that we're working through right now. We want kids to participate. It's that like intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation about buying into the assessment and the personalized pathways. I think that iReady should be used as a way to progress monitor. It should not be tied to grades, but the grades that your child receives should match the data that you're receiving here. They should align. If
Yeah,
they're not
I was
aligned,
more
that's a problem.
Asking as a way to Jeremiah's question, to sanity check this data. Like if like half the students that are 3 grade levels behind are getting like Bs, and yeah, they're not paying attention to the test, or they don't care about this.
So there's another correlation that I think Jen's going to get into in a little bit. So there's this correlation between SBA, between iReady and grades. The correlation between iReady and SBA and grades is not quite there. So this is where you have this iReady assessment comes home, but the teacher is saying, no, your student is exceeding standard, but iReady says that they're not. And SBA says that they're not. So we're going to talk a little bit about the correlation between SBA and iReady, but we still have work to do, which we've started with identifying essential standards, and then assessments are coming next year. That's going to become better aligned and correlated as we continue that work. But right now, yeah, you're going to get some different messages.
So is the data just not readily available? Like,
No, I mean, the iReady data that we have correlates to how our students perform on the SBA. We have still buy-in from our staff that it correlates to how students are performing. And so we have some work to do around calibrating how we grade to the rigor of the standard. The work that we're doing in our essentials, unpacking those essentials, helps our teachers to better understand the rigor of the standard, so that when they assess and when they grade, they're grading to the rigor of the standard. And they're aligned across classrooms and across schools. And that's the work that we've started this year in math. And as we've done that, the grades that teachers are giving are much more closely associated with the results that you're seeing. That hasn't been a practice in the past.
I see.
And one more piece to this is when we're talking about grades, I'm not quite sure that we all have the same definition of what does a grade represent. For some teachers, the grade is also going to include behaviors. Was the student on task? Were they, did they come in on time? Were they prepared? It doesn't necessarily it's not that pure. This is what kids know and are able to do. There are behaviors that are factored in, and that varies by teacher, by department, by grade, by all kinds of things. So we have some more tightening up and alignment to do in that area.
Well, thank you.
So this is our growth this year in reading. The top box you'll see are some reversals. So we actually reversed in 7th and 8th grade. I think this gets, Jeremiah, to your point, that we are struggling at that grade, those grades in particular, to get the buy-in from students about the importance of the iReady assessment. I think, to Kim's point, we're working with our teachers to develop some strategies that are going to address that. But this is something that's new this year, the reversal. And so we just have to identify why, what's the root of it, and then address it. If you go to the next slide, this compares it to last year's growth. Our growth is pretty similar this time of year in reading. I think a lot of that's because we're not focused on reading this year. So we're just continuing to do sort of the same things that we've always done instructionally and as it relates to iReady. But if you go to the next two slides, when we're talking about math, we're still struggling with that reversal at middle level. But the growth data, those kind of dark blue boxes, particularly in 2 grade levels below and 1 grade level below and 3, we're making a lot of growth. And if you go to the last growth slide, you can see it's significantly more than we were making last year with our focus on core instruction and our commitment to passing 2 lessons per week. I did take a look at a couple different grade levels just to look at how does the winter compare to the end of the year? And I would expect there's still going to be a lot more growth from this point through the end of the year. One of the grade levels I looked at, for example, was kindergarten, and they still made another 20% growth between mid-year and end of year. So we're not done yet. We would like to see these numbers above 50% because that's the middle student, right? So if that student's performing at is 50% of the way towards their growth goal, then that means there's students who aren't 50% of the way there. So we would want to be a little bit above 50% so that more of our students are trending towards their typical growth. The higher we get towards that middle student being above 50%, that means they're making progress towards their stretch.
So for the students that are 2 or 3 grade levels behind, are their goals, their growth goal, is it to make up more than a whole grade level?
Yeah, so each student's typical growth is based on where they come in at. And so what could typically be expected in 1 year for them to make 1 year's growth from where they start is their typical growth. But what we've asked our principals to do and our teacher leaders to do is to look at those students and to say, okay, so in order to close the gap, we need 2 years in a row of them making their stretch growth, which means they have to grow more than 100% in a typical year. So if they make their stretch growth just 2 years in a row, it doesn't matter if they start 3 years below or 1 year below. If they just make that stretch growth 2 years in a row, they will be on grade level.
So one other thing that we've noticed and we've talked about, and it's not unique to Monroe, is that our students who are 3 or more grade levels below, we do a better job with helping them with growth and getting towards standard than we do with our students who are mid or above grade level. And I've seen that in all the data that I've looked at for the past decade or so. It's just something for us to be aware of and to think about, because every student, regardless of where you are in the system, deserves to have at least 1 year's worth of growth.
And that'd be 100% in this data, right?
It would be 50% at this time of year, 100% at the end of the year.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we want them to make stretch growth, we want to see them closer, 60, 70, 80% at this time of year. But students to make typical growth would be right around 50%.
Yeah, that gets a little concerning when you look at it and you see the 23, the 50. Yes, we're halfway through the year, so that's where the data should be for growth.
So we do believe that based on this and based on the trend line that we're seeing, that if we continue to use iReady as intended, that means doing the diagnostics 3 times a year, doing the 2 lessons per week and passing those lessons, then we should expect an increase in our Smarter Balanced Assessment scores. And as I said earlier, students who make their stretch goal for 2 years will be at grade level no matter where they start from. So, you know, we've been really pushing to our principals and our teacher leaders, like help our kids get their stretch growth. If we make that as a goal, if we set that as a goal, if we have data chats around that, we're going to help our students who are in that red and yellow. And it only takes 2 years to get there.
And we've heard from iReady that there is a strong correlation between what we're seeing in our iReady data and what it looks like for SBA. And we're doing some internal looking at that data as well. And we're finding that the students who are doing their lessons are showing the growth that they should be showing. And we believe that they're going to be closer to meeting their SBA goals than students who are not doing the My Pathway lessons.
I think that's it. Any other questions?
Is the current state of the, the PLC, Professional Learning Committee, has that come along far enough to help with the students with teachers collaborating where a student may have a shortcoming? Is that far enough along? Has that been implemented?
We're starting to see that happening on different teams. So each collaborative team is in a slightly different place because it's based on the knowledge of the team that exists and the structures of that team. But I think each team is now really beginning to think about ways in which we're responsible for all of our students. So some of our schools, well, all of our schools really have a time set aside for intervention to intervene. And what we're working on is supporting our teachers to find the best strategies to do that within their day. So every school has a block of time to provide intervention. Our teachers in their collaborative teams are identifying now where students have gaps. And I would say that the work around the essentials and really understanding that rigor of the standard, developing some assessments together, looking at data together is helping them to see, oh, okay, oh, I thought they fell off here, but they really fell off here. This is where I need to provide that intervention. As a system, we're still trying to figure it out. How at elementary do you provide intervention in reading and math at the same time? But I would say that we're working together to try to figure that out.
Any other questions? All right, thank you,
Thank you.
Kim. Thank you, Jen. Okay, agenda item 4.01, consideration of donations. And Director Barnes.
Okay, we have 3 different donations that we have received. The first one is from the Monroe Bearcat Basketball Booster Club that donated a monetary grant in the amount of $500 for the sole and express purpose for the sports medicine program. We have Salem Woods Elementary PTA that donated a monetary grant in the amount of $695 for the sole and express purpose of paying for a jump rope assembly. And we have Craig Beacons, who donated a monetary grant in the amount of $400 for the sole and express purpose of the funds going to the MHS Sports Med Club. So a big thank you to those who continue to partner with us in donations to support our students.
Thanks, Director Barnes. Agenda item 4.02, student representatives. Our student reps will present a report highlighting student activities throughout the district. Laura, Sophia.
Okay, so first I will talk about the excursion program at Sky Valley. This is a program for grades K through 5, and they go on a field trip once a week. Usually they're either free or less than $10, and some of the potential destinations include the Pacific Science Center, Imagine Children's Museum, Seattle Children's Theater, Adopt a Stream, City Hall, and the Museum of Flight. And then upcoming at Sky Valley, we have the Pi Day Extravaganza on March 14th. We'll have math games, pie, and then math resources. And then we have the Midwinter Ball coming up on March 22nd, and the ACT Irish Stew and Soda Bread fundraiser on March 13th.
Hi. Okay. First, last Friday we had matcha, which is the stands were pretty full, and the senior boys once again won against the soccer boys, which is like 3 years in a row now. I don't know how they always win. And then last week, 3 FFA members were able to go to and compete at a veterinary science event, career event. And then first day of spring sports was today, and it was my first time being a captain for the track team, and it's kind of scary, and it was snowing out, so it was cold. And then I think it was either last week or the week before, National Honor Society started again at the high school, because it's been like 2 years since it has started. Like, we had a club, but then it stopped. And we were just coming up with ideas last meeting, and I really hope we get to work with the animal rescue, because that's one thing I've always wanted to be part of at the high school. And then ASB will be hosting this Wednesday. I think it's like a for Latinas. They just want more to be part for ASB. So that will be Wednesday, March 28th. And then you guys were talking about iReady, and I just feel like a lot of kids when I was in middle school felt the same way your son did, that it's very time consuming, and a lot of them just skipped through it, even though they cared about their math and reading. They didn't feel like it was very, I guess, they didn't feel connected to it. And a lot of them works, it just feels like the surveys in high school where they just kind of click through it to get through it because they don't want to do it. Even though those kids did do well in like math and reading now in high school, but in middle school it was not very fun to do. So, yeah.
Sophie, I appreciate you sharing that. That's interesting because my son it was the exact same conversation. And that's, I guess, where my question is that he's in high school now and he's in geometry a grade above and he's acing it. And I had a D in geometry, and he's in honors English, and he failed iReady in middle school and he's acing honors English. And that's where it's like, but he cares because that's the conversation. He says, well, now it counts. Now it matters because my grades matter for high school. And that's, I guess, the hard part is how do we gauge students to, and again, I don't want to project that experience on everybody, but I appreciate you sharing that, because if that is the case in middle school, it's hard to get kids to care about school a lot of times. And there's a lot of things that are pressuring them. So the way that we can get our instructors, our teachers to be able to get our kids to care about that and to be able to put it in manageable chunks is a huge deal. So thank you for sharing that.
Any other questions? I was just gonna say, I think it's the same because I'm in pre-calc now and AP Lang, and most of the people I know are in the same classes. But I did really well in the iReady in middle school. So
Thank you, Sophia and Laura. Okay, agenda item 4.03, public comment. Public comment forms received after the meeting has started will be saved for the following meeting. We welcome and value public comment on educational issues and recognize the importance of the opportunity for members of the public to express their thoughts to the school board. It is the policy of the Monroe School District to promote mutual respect, civility, and orderly conduct among district employees, parents, and the public. We kindly ask that you refrain from comments that violate school district policy. Individuals are asked to limit comments to 3 minutes. A designated speaker for a group is asked to keep comments to 5 minutes. If you have a personnel concern, any staff member in the room can help with how to go forward with a complaint about personnel. The board does not respond to public comments during the business meeting. Please know that the board's silence is neutral. It is neither a signal of agreement nor disagreement with the speaker's remarks. The president may interrupt or terminate an individual statement when it is personally directed, abusive, obscene, irrelevant, targets a protected class, or exceeds the time limit. As the board president, I will determine the appropriateness of all such rulings. When I call your name, please step up to the microphone. If attending the meeting virtually, please join us as a panelist, allow video, and unmute your microphone. Our first speaker is Julie. Julie, can you please state your name for the record and your relationship with our schools?
Hello, my name is Julie, and I have a child in the Monroe School District at the elementary level. I just want to quickly say thank you to Superintendent Woodward for taking the time this morning to meet with me and have a conversation. And I found it very informative and feel like our voices are being heard. Myself. Yeah. I'm standing here once again asking for your help to reduce violence in the classrooms. Violence is happening not only in my child's classroom, but several other classrooms at our school, as well as other schools in the Monroe School District. This is having a far greater impact on the children than just them being hit, kicked, or having things thrown at them. I've had several parents tell me that their children's mental health is suffering. They're experiencing anxiety at home, sudden crying, night tremors, bedwetting, just to name a few. These are all stemming from the traumatic events that are happening in the classroom. These children are suppressing their feelings and emotions while at school and then having emotional meltdowns at home. Children react differently to these scary events that are taking place in the classroom. What's being done to provide additional support for their mental health? Our children are at school for an education. With near daily violent disruptions, the teacher has to stop teaching, protect the other students in the class, and keep them out of harm's way, and then get the situation under control. How much time is now being spent on trying to get the kids calmed down, back in their seats, and focused on the subject that the teacher was attempting to teach them about? As I said 2 weeks ago, this disruptive behavior is detrimental to the academic community as it interferes with the learning process for the other students. It inhibits the ability of the instructors to teach most effectively, diverts energy and resources away from the educational mission. Action needs to happen now, and we need results now before this leaves a lasting impact on our children's mental health and education, not to mention the stress and mental exhaustion the teachers are experiencing. Does that mean creating new classrooms or programs for children who have these violent behavioral tendencies? I don't know what the answer is, but change is necessary. What I do know is that our children deserve a safe and disruption-free learning environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. McKenna? Your name and your relationship to the school district.
My name is McKenna. I'm a parent of a student in the Monroe School District at the elementary level. I stand before you today with a heavy heart filled with frustration and deep concern for the safety and well-being of my child at the school he attends. The gravity of the situation compels me to bring these matters to your attention, as my pleas for action seem to have fallen on deaf ears since the beginning of the school year. From the onset, it has been very evident that my child's safety is not being prioritized as it should be. I find myself grappling with the distressing reality that my child has endured physical assaults on multiple occasions within the supposed sanctuary of a classroom. These incidents range from having their feet stomped on, being punched in the stomach, to the utterly appalling act of being kicked in the genitals, being sent to the nurse's office, and no contact from the school to myself as the parent to inform me that these events have occurred or that my children was sent to the nurse's office. No child should have to endure such acts of violence in a place that should foster growth, learning, and a sense of security. Equally alarming is the fact that my child has been chased around the classroom by another student wielding scissors on more than one occasion. The potential for irreparable harm in such situations cannot be overstated, and it is disheartening that these incidents are occurring under the watchful eye of those entrusted with our children's safety. Compounding this issue is the distressing frequency with which my child's classroom is being evacuated. The learning environment is disrupted almost regularly, leading to significant lag in the academic process of the entire class. It is disconcerting to witness the entire educational experience of my child and their classmates being hijacked by the actions of one individual student. I implore you to recognize the severity of these incidents and the profound impact that they are having on my child's mental well-being. The emotional toll that comes with fearing for one's safety in a place that should be a haven is immeasurable. My child no longer feels safe attending school, and I'm deeply concerned with the long-term effects on him. My child even states to me, Mom, you always say that you'll keep me safe as long as I tell you what's going on. I'm telling you what's going on and I'm not safe. That is heartbreaking and devastating as a parent to hear that. And it's not just my child dealing with this. I urge the school board and administrators to take immediate and decisive action to rectify these issues. Our children deserve an education free from fear and violence. It is your duty to ensure a safe and conducive learning environment for all students, and it's my hope that you will take the necessary steps to address these pressing concerns promptly. Thank you for your attention, and I trust that you will prioritize the safety and well-being of our children above all else. Thank you.
Thank you, McKenna. Agenda item 5.01, consideration of revisions to policy 5050 contracts. This is our second reading. And we have Dan here. Maybe.
Dan is not, but there were no concerns during the first reading brought up, so I told him he did not have to attend tonight. Rushed home to beat the snow. It stopped. So Dan, if you're watching, you can come back to the board meeting.
Dan, you can stay home. It's okay.
Is there a motion?
I move that the Monroe School District Board of Directors approve policy 5050 contracts working document for the second revision.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second that policy 5050 contracts be approved. All in favor, raise your hand. Agenda item has passed 5-0. Agenda item 5.02, out-of-state travel request. Is there a motion?
I move that the Monroe School District Board of Directors approves the out-of-state travel request.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second that the Monroe School District Board of Directors approves the out-of-state travel request. Discussion?
I'm excited for them.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a great trip for DECA.
I'll go ahead really quickly. Monroe High School DECA advisor Darby Vegas is requesting permission for her and Monroe High School DECA students to attend the DECA International Career Development Conference in Anaheim, California, April 26, 2024 through May 1st, 2024. Sounds like a lot of fun.
I was wondering if I could have Shannon come up and give us an overview of this. I was involved in judging DECA participants many years ago. It is rigorous, and the presentations that the students make, I was really impressed. So to me, this is a very important event to show the skills that the students have worked on and have accomplished. Could you give us an overview of the things
Sure.
they'd be participating in?
So I actually had the benefit last year of being here for the same conversation, and we went to Florida last year, and I co-chaperoned for my first ever national event for DECA or any of our other career and tech student organizations. So just generically, all of our CTE programs have a career and tech student organization that aligns to them. So DECA is the one that aligns with our business and marketing program, but FFA would be with our agricultural sciences program. They all have one that matches up, and they all have competitive events. Not every chapter chooses to participate in competitive events because it really is based on student interest. And a lot of times they're embedded, in fact, they are intentionally embedded within classroom structure as well. And so DECA, within our marketing program specifically, Ms. Vegas takes a lot of the work that we do with within our classes, and she turns those into competitive events. And then if the students choose to pursue that, they first have to go to a regional event, which is kind of Snohomish County area. And then they go to a larger event at the state level, and then they go to national event. And so this is the national event. They can compete in everything from something as simple as kind of a basic presentation, all the way up to kind of creating a mock business and giving the business plan for that entire business, including salaries and figuring out all of the financials, as well as like contract language and those type of things. So it can get really intense. There's I'm not going to list all the events because there's like 40 of them, but there's any level of the events. And so at the national convention, you actually can go in and they have lessons where students are engaging with guest speakers and learning more. So there's learning that goes along with it. And then they have a room where you walk around, and it's kind of like a massive business forum. It's thousands and thousands of kids. It was insane. And they walk around and you can actually go and look at all these projects, and students are presenting to not only other students and other like advisors, but they're also presenting to people from business and industry to learn more about their projects. And so the work that these kids do, not only is it exceptionally like well done and high level, it's really, really impressive, but it also helps lead to scholarships and sometimes jobs right outside of school from this work.
Thanks, Shannon.
Sure.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. The agenda item has passed 5-0. Agenda item 6.06, approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I move that the Monroe School District Board of Directors approve all items as listed and presented in the consent agenda dated February 26, 2024.
Was there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second that the Monroe School District Board of Directors approve all items as listed and presented in the consent agenda dated February 26, 2024. All in favor, raise your hand. The agenda item has passed 5-0. Agenda item 7.01, superintendent update with Superintendent Woodward.
All right, thank you very much. So the first draft of our strategic plan will finally be going out to our community the week of March 11th. Right now, yeah, it's been a long time coming. Right now, the administrative team and the board has a copy of the draft, and they have given lots of feedback. We'll make some adjustments this week, and then Tamara and Aaron will work their magic in taking all of that, putting it into a really nice format that we can push out the week of the 11th. The week of the 18th, we'll run focus groups again. And just like we did at the front end of the strategic planning process, to ask our community if we got it right. Does this reflect what you're telling us that we need to be working on? And the hope is that they'll give us lots of feedback and we'll make adjustments, because if that happens, it's more likely that our community will feel like it is their plan as well, and they can get behind that. So really excited about that. Thanks to all of you for attending Park Place Middle School for our tour last week. That was a lot of fun. I know the administrative team really appreciated that, and I thought our tour guides did a great job, and it was fun popping into classrooms at a middle school on a Friday after lunch. And I thought the kids were great too. The topic that came up after our tour, we talked a bit about cell phone usage during instructional time. It has just become something that it's pretty standard in the US to walk around classrooms, to see kids on phones, to see headphones in, and it's part of the culture that we live in. You all know now that there's obviously a lot of talk across the state. Many districts have adopted policies banning cell phones during instructional time with varying degrees of success. Matter of fact, there are entire countries that have done this not that that would happen here. I appreciate the local control you all get on this issue, but it's something that you've mentioned to me independently as something you'd like to talk about a little bit more here. You know that at Hidden River, Park Place, and Monroe High School, they're all trying something with cell phones. I believe 2 years for Hidden River, the second year, and the second year for Monroe High School. I think it's a little bit newer at Park Place Middle School. This topic would be something that our administrative team, and I believe the bulk of our teachers, would appreciate you all looking at some draft language and take some consideration. The Student Advisory Council that I get to work with has the last 2 meetings that we've had, they've weighed in, and Holly was at the last meeting, and it is a very provocative topic for them. We did talk about some of the mental health issues associated with just rampant use of social media nonstop during the school, after school, before school, on weekends, et cetera. I think the first time that I brought it up with that group, there's a little bit of like, well, I don't know, we like our phones too. Well, maybe we do need a break from our phones to, let's talk about it again at the next meeting. So you've got a group of concerned students wrapping their brains around it. So what I'll start doing is, you had articulated to Christy at the principal at Park Place, that you'd maybe like to hear a little bit about how it's going there. So we can invite our 3 principals of our secondary schools to come in. I'll keep working with the Student Advisory Council. I think they'll want to weigh in and maybe make some comment to you all at a future board meeting. In the meantime, I have, this is Peninsula School Districts. I know Bellevue's another local district that has policy on this. There's 6 of them. Sophia, you're on the Student Advisory Council. I'll make sure I don't think I have a copy for you. I'll send, you'll get the link that I send to the Student Advisory Group on that. So I'm looking forward to digging in on this a bit. The Student Advisory Group, the one thing that we looked at the end of my time with them is, I can't remember what feature this is. Jesse, you would know on an iPhone, but I asked them to look up, they didn't really realize you could look at the number of pickups. How often do you pick your phone up? So some of them were looking at their data that outlines that the apps are looking at in a given day, the number of minutes they're spending, how many times they pick up their phone. And the couple that I talked to at the end that actually found how to do that were shocked and dismayed at the amount of interactions they're having with their phone every day. So there's some urgency to have the conversation, and I'm looking forward to doing that with you all. That's all I have for tonight.
Any feedback from parents who do not like the band?
Yeah, we'll have to see what the principals say. I've heard a little bit. I think, I'm not sure to what extent. There's one thing about having a policy, then there's another, depends on the level of buy-in from staff and whether or not they're implementing it in their particular classrooms, et cetera. There's definitely, you'll see in the Peninsula policy, talks about some parent concern around, hey, I want my child to be able to get a hold of me if there's an emergency. There's a stipulation for that in the Peninsula Board policy. It says, hey, in the event of emergency, a student could use their phone, right? So that's the biggest concern as I've talked with parents about this, and I'm sure our principals have heard the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Okay, agenda item 8.01, board reports and or comments. Director Barnes.
All right, okay, so first I will start off with picking up where Sean left off with the school tour at Park Place. I just again want to thank the 4 students who are members of the ASB, Kauai, Charlie, Judah, and Eliana. It was truly a pleasure to just engage and talk with them, and sort of Kauai was the one who showed me around, and I'm picking her brain about what's going well in school, what could we do better, what do you really like about what's going on, and just to hear her perspective. I truly appreciate it. It's always fun when we get to interact with students. So just a big thank you to them, and to the band teacher there at Park Place. Oh my gosh, just to go in and listen to the students, they're prepping for their jazz. No, it was a performance. It wasn't jazz, but the songs they were playing, they were incredible. They're really, really good. That might be coming up this weekend. I don't remember, but look it up. If you have an opportunity to go and support our students in band. They are phenomenal. Charlie's in there too. He plays the saxophone. So also I was able to attend the 3rd series PLC cohort on Tuesday last week. And some of the main takeaways, just to sort of sum it down, right? We want to make sure that we are making sure that children feel like they belong, that they matter, that they're seen, but also encouraged. That was a new one that I hadn't heard, just in talking about the language and what it is that we're doing, making sure that we're encouraging students and her main takeaway that she said, if you take nothing else away from this, take this one thing. She says, if we're sitting here talking about being kind, she says, if we are not preparing our students academically for what awaits them in the real world, we are not being kind. And I thought that was rather profound, right? It's all of the interactions and the behavior and the things that are happening that are important, yes. But we have to make sure that we're preparing our students for what awaits them outside of this school district. So incredibly important, and how everything ties together to achieve that goal. So also, it's time to celebrate some of our amazing students in this district. So we had 4 different students go to state in wrestling up at the high school. We had Sebastian Farrell, Will Carpenter, Audrey George, and Haley Carswell. So a big congratulations to those students. We also had our girls varsity basketball team go to state for the first time since 2015, which was a huge deal. So a big congratulations to the girls and to Coach Tyson Horner. This is his first year, and his assistant coaches, Joni Edelbrock, Charles James, and Julie Sexton. Quite an amazing group of individuals. So I just want to congratulate them. They worked really hard. Super proud of them all. We also had 2 gymnasts go to state. We had Bryn Magelson and Madeline Clark. So congratulations to them. And last but not least, a huge congratulations to our JROTC, who placed first in districts, and they are moving on to regionals. And this happened this last Saturday. So super proud of them and all their hard work under the leadership of Joshua Cruz, who is incredible. They just continue to amaze me and impress me every year with the things that they accomplish and do. So I want to make sure that they get their recognition as well. So huge congratulations to all of our student athletes. Keep up the good work, and I'm super excited for spring sports. I'll be out there to watch as much as I can. Baseball, softball, and track and field, and maybe even try to get out there for some tennis. So yeah, that's all I've got for today.
I also enjoyed the tour at the school for Park Place. One thing I was interested in was the security and of the school, and I learned that they have shelter in place exercises along with earthquake, and that the students I talked to were aware of that. So lockdown, if there's something external, they just lock the whole building down. So that was good to hear. I'm very excited about the strategic plan. Reviewed it. You got the mission, the statement, the goals, objectives, and then strategies to carry those out. I'm thrilled with that. You know, my son and I, we had a conversation today about, he works in the office with me, and we always have a talk about technology and AI, and we mess around with Chat GPT. I think it's 4 now. And then also DALL-E 3, which is the image generator. And we talk about where it's going and the impact they're going to have. He's not too positive on it. He thinks it's really going to affect things. And we were talking about students and the opportunities they have in the future. And he was talking about, you know, what Elon Musk is talking about, the neural links. So in order to keep up with the supercomputers and the quantum leaps in technology, you know, maybe we'll have a policy on that someday, you know, whether students can have neural links. And I was looking through some various things I have in OneNote, which I'm not thrilled with Microsoft, but this OneNote is kind of handy. So I got this little snippet I took. Bill Gates says the development of artificial intelligence is the most technological advance in decades. He said in a blog post, it is fundamental as the creation of the microprocessor, the personal computer, the internet, and mobile phones. So where we're going with that in the school and how that affects the students, I don't know, but it's something that I think about, and the future and the ability of our students to be in the workplace, the marketplace, and to be equipped for the new world we're heading into. So that's all.
Directors, any other comments, questions? Okay. I just wanted to thank him and Jen one more time for that iReady presentation. I'm sure that took a lot of time, but it's also just really great to know where our kids are at halfway through the year. And I wanted to remind everyone that tomorrow is kindergarten information night from 5:30 to 6:30 at all of our elementaries. Correct? Yes, 5:30 to 6:30. Come and join the Monroe School District. Enter your kindergartner. It's been a while since I've done that. All right, it is 6:07 p.m. Also, I had a great time at Park Place. So much fun. I am 5'2", so I blended in with the sixth graders naturally. But luckily Chuck was there with me so he could find me. I had to hold my hand up. So thank you, Chuck. All right, it is 6:07 p.m. and tonight's meeting is adjourned.